Sapphire River Hotel is renowned for its opulence and sophistication, consistently regarded as one of the most luxurious hotels in all of New York City. Nestled in the heart of the bustling metropolis, this prestigious establishment is a symbol of elegance and refinement. Among its dedicated staff is a young woman named Lily, whose work ethic and kind nature have made her a standout figure. Little did she know, however, that her life would intersect with a man who was far more than what he appeared to be. An elderly man, looking weathered and frail, applied for a janitor position at the hotel. His disheveled appearance and shabby clothing led many to view him as nothing more than a pitiable figure. When he was hired, some of the staff, including the managers, took it as an opportunity to show their superiority and mistreated him, failing to recognize his worth or humanity. The only person who seemed to care for the old man, offering him a kind word and a gentle smile, was Lily. A month passed, and one day the elderly man was gone. He disappeared without a trace, leaving behind his unpaid wages. His sudden departure went unnoticed by most, and the hotel staff continued with their daily routines, unaware of the truth. What they didn't know was that the frail, pitiful man they had scorned was none other than the very owner of the Sapphire River Hotel. He had been disguising himself as a lowly janitor, observing his staff closely and hoping to uncover the truth about their true character. He had intentionally played the part of the helpless old man to see which of his employees were trustworthy and which were not. Now, with the truth revealed, the fate of those arrogant staff members and managers hung in the balance. Would the owner, enraged by their cruelty, fire them all, or would there be another twist in the tale? And what of Lily, the only one who had shown kindness to the old man? How would she fare in the aftermath of this revelation? Only time would tell, but the story of Sapphire River Hotel was about to take a dramatic turn. Lily, meanwhile, was facing her own personal battle. The morning had started off as a chaotic rush, and now, with only a few minutes left before she would be late for work, she was growing increasingly anxious. The traffic on the interstate was at a standstill, with bumper-to-bumper cars all around her. She lived in Brooklyn, but her job was in Queens, and no matter how much she wished for a faster journey, the roads were clogged in every direction. The subway and train lines were equally as packed, resembling a swarm of ants marching in a never-ending line, and if she relied on them, she'd likely arrive just as her coworkers were heading home. "Sir, isn't there another route we could take, maybe one that's not as crowded?" Lily asked, her voice tinged with frustration, glancing at the cab driver who seemed far more interested in her legs than the road ahead. "If there was, we'd already be on it," the driver muttered, eyes flicking back to the road. "Relax, miss. There's nothing we can do. The traffic's just bad today." Lily's irritation grew as she clutched her bag over her thighs. She could feel the creepiness of the driver's lingering gaze, making her uneasy. If she had the chance to switch cabs, she would have done so immediately, but it was no easy feat to find another in this chaotic traffic. Besides, any new fare would likely cost a fortune. So, she resigned herself to her situation, her mind wandering as she scrolled through random videos on her phone, trying to distract herself from the creeping anxiety. After what felt like an eternity, she noticed they hadn't moved more than a few feet. The destination still seemed impossibly far, and she realized there was no way she would make it to work on time if she stayed in the cab. Frustrated and growing desperate, Lily threw caution to the wind and decided to get out. She no longer cared about the fare. Her job was at stake, and she was already running dangerously late. Hastily, she threw open the cab door and dashed onto the sidewalk, her high heels clutched tightly in her hands. The heat from the pavement burned through the soles of her feet, but Lily barely noticed. Sweat dripped down her face, but she didn't stop running. She passed a section where the traffic had eased up, yet, as luck would have it, no cabs were in sight. "This is so frustrating," Lily muttered under her breath, sounding like a child throwing a tantrum. "Traffic's cleared up, but there's not a single cab. This is perfect." And so, Lily's day was far from over. Her struggle to make it to work only the beginning of what would soon become a much larger story, one where kindness, betrayal, and hidden truths would come to light. Would she make it to work on time? And what would the future hold for the Sapphire River Hotel and its dedicated staff? Only time would reveal the answers. Just as Lily was about to lose all hope of finding a way to get to work, a sleek black car suddenly pulled up in front of her, its engine purring quietly. The window rolled down, and to her surprise, it was none other than Theodore, the head manager of Sapphire River Hotel. His face, strikingly handsome and effortlessly charismatic, seemed to shine in the sunlight, almost blinding her with its perfection. He looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine cover, like a celebrity but with the confidence to match. Lily couldn't help but feel a flutter in her chest. She had always admired Theodore from afar, along with many of her female colleagues. Unlike the more flirtatious women who openly fawned over him, Lily had always kept her feelings hidden. She doubted that someone like him would ever take an interest in someone like her. Still, there was something undeniably charming about him, something that made him impossible to ignore. "Get in!" Theodore's voice was smooth and confident with a playful undertone. "Huh? Me?" Lily stuttered, her surprise evident. "There's nobody else here," Theodore teased, a warm laugh escaping his lips. "Oh, no one else," Lily replied, her tone more to herself than to him. "Then get in, it's going to be tough to find a ride right now. There was an accident ahead, so all the buses and cabs have switched routes," Theodore explained, his eyes glinting with an almost mischievous light. Lily hesitated for a moment, but the truth was, she was already running far too late, and an offer like this was too good to refuse. Gathering her courage, she slid into the car, the cool leather seats offering her a brief moment of comfort amidst the chaos. "Thank you so much, sir. I'm really late because of the traffic. It feels like every day is torture for us commuters," Lily said with a small sigh as she settled in, trying to alleviate some of the frustration that had built up over the course of the morning. "Well, what else do you expect with the way traffic is managed around here?" Theodore replied with a casual shrug. "It's been a problem for so long, but these politicians focus on everything else except this." He shook his head in frustration, the light-hearted tone of his voice softening for a moment. Lily chuckled, feeling a little more at ease now that the tension had been broken. Theodore was one of those rare people who could make anyone feel comfortable, and his easygoing demeanor made her forget for a moment that he was her boss, someone of much higher rank. The conversation flowed naturally between them. Theodore was a man of many words, and Lily, being just as chatty, didn't mind at all. Their exchange felt more like two friends catching up than a manager and employee talking. His kindness, paired with his genuine enthusiasm, made him even more appealing. It wasn't just his looks that made the women at the hotel admire him, it was his charisma and sincerity. "Don't worry, I'll talk to the managers. I'll just say I had you run some errands, which is why you were late," Theodore offered, his eyes glancing over at her reassuringly. "Sir, what if they think something else?" Lily asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Don't worry about it. I've got it handled. Besides, out of all the staff, you're the only one I really get to chat with. Remember our first conversation during your interview? You were the friendliest applicant, so we hit it off right away. We may not be close, but I think of you like a friend," Theodore said, a warm smile spreading across his face as he pulled away from the curb. Lily couldn't help but feel touched by his words. "You're really too nice, sir. Sometimes you do have to show a bit of a mean streak. If you're too nice, people might take advantage of you," she replied, her tone more thoughtful now. Theodore let out a soft laugh, his eyes still focused on the road. "Maybe you're right," he said, the smile still lingering on his lips. "But I think it's better to be kind than to be cynical. Besides, it's not like I haven't learned a few lessons along the way." As the car drove through the busy streets, the two of them continued to talk, and for the first time that day, Lily felt a sense of calm. Little did she know, this seemingly ordinary moment was just the beginning of a much larger story, one that would unfold in the most unexpected of ways, with relationships, power dynamics, and hidden truths all coming into play. "You have a point," Theodore said with a thoughtful nod, "but let them do as they will. As for us, we'll always treat people with kindness. You never know, the person in front of you might be the one who truly needs it." His words were sincere, a reminder of the power of compassion, even in a world often driven by selfishness. Lily couldn't help but smile at his wisdom. There was something comforting about his attitude, a stark contrast to the harshness she'd witnessed from others. They drove in silence for a few moments before arriving at the hotel. Lily assumed that Theodore would simply drop her off and be on his way, but to her surprise, he parked the car and accompanied her inside. As soon as they stepped into the hotel, Lily's heart began to race. The moment they walked through the doors, all eyes seemed to be on them. Guests, staff, everyone in the lobby were staring at them as they passed. Lily felt more self-conscious than ever, acutely aware of the attention Theodore's presence commanded. She tried to ignore the looks, focusing instead on keeping pace with him as they made their way to the staff room. Inside, the usual chatter from her coworkers faded into a tense silence as they noticed Theodore walking in with Lily. Among the staff was their notoriously difficult manager, Julian, who was well known for his harsh demeanor and inappropriate behavior. His eyes flicked to Lily the moment she entered, and a malicious grin spread across his face. "Oh, at least you remembered to come in today," Julian sneered sarcastically, his words dripping with disdain as he eyed Lily. "Sorry, sir," Lily began, but before she could explain herself, Theodore spoke up. "Actually, Julian, Lily came with me earlier," Theodore said smoothly, his tone calm and reassuring. "I saw her waiting for a ride, and since I needed someone to help me with some things at my condo, I asked her for assistance." Julian, ever the sycophant when it came to Theodore, didn't hesitate for a second. He accepted the explanation without question. Theodore, after all, was the highest-ranking manager at the hotel, and his word was law. "So, sir?" Julian asked, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth as he tried to make small talk. "Well," Theodore continued, "there's a big event at the stadium nearby, so we're all going to be busy today. The guests will be checking in soon, and we'll need everyone on deck. Good luck, everyone," he added, before turning on his heel and walking out. Lily stood frozen in the doorway for a moment, her nerves getting the best of her. She had never felt so exposed. As Theodore left, she noticed Julian's eyes narrowing at her, his gaze lingering a little too long. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Before she could react, Julian walked up to her with a slow, deliberate pace. Without warning, he leaned in close and sniffed her hair, his presence making Lily's skin crawl. "I'll cut you some slack today," he muttered, his voice low and threatening, "because it was Sir Theodore who spoke up for you. But don't let it happen again. If you're late again, you're fired." Lily's stomach turned, her body stiffening in discomfort. Julian's words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and the way he whispered them made her feel even more vulnerable. He wasn't finished, though. With a sinister smile, he added, "Don't worry. There's a way for you to keep your job. You know what that is." He paused, locking eyes with her in a way that made her blood run cold. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Lily stood there, her mind racing, her thoughts spiraling. She couldn't believe the audacity of Julian's threats. Trying to shake off the unease that was settling in her chest, she hurried over to her locker, eager to get away from the uncomfortable situation. But just as she was about to pull her things together, another coworker approached. It was Elara, another housekeeper who had always been distant with Lily. There was an edge to her voice, a hint of jealousy that Lily couldn't quite understand. "Look at this girl, acting all innocent," Elara sneered, her tone sharp with contempt. "Flirting around, aren't you?" Lily blinked, confused by the accusation. "Huh? What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to laugh it off, but her nerves were already fraying. "Don't pretend you don't know," Elara snapped, her eyes narrowing. "I've seen the way you look at Sir Theodore. It's obvious that you've got a thing for him, acting all coy whenever he's around." Lily's face flushed, a mix of shock and confusion washing over her. "What? No, that's not true at all," she stammered. But Elara's smug expression told her that her words fell on deaf ears. "Don't play innocent, Lily," Elara said with a cruel smirk, clearly enjoying the discomfort she was causing. "I see everything." The tension in the staff room thickened as Elara's words hung in the air. Lily's mind was spinning, her heart racing from the unwanted attention and the difficult situation she found herself in. She had always tried to be professional, kind, and respectful to everyone, but it seemed that her efforts were being misunderstood. "Elara, come on," Lily retorted, her patience finally wearing thin. "Anyone would smile if a guy like him is that handsome. That's all it is. I'm not like other women who blatantly flirt." She tried to stay calm, but Elara's accusations had pushed her too far. "Deny it all you want," Elara shot back, her tone dripping with accusation. "I can smell it on you, Lily. The axe coming from inside. So you're flirty too." Her words were sharp, her eyes challenging Lily, felt her temper rising. For the first time, she was about to stand up for herself in a way she hadn't before. "What's your problem if I'm flirty or not?" she asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. Elara's face twisted with disdain and she spun on her heel, clearly ready to storm off. "What did you say?" Elara demanded, her anger evident. "I'm asking you, yes or no," Lily pressed, unwilling to back down. The tension in the air was palpable, and it seemed like things were about to escalate further. But before they could continue, their co-worker Elise, who was usually quiet and kept to herself, stepped between them, her presence a calming influence. "Come on, enough of that," she said firmly. "Don't fight. We've got a lot of guests right now." Lily took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing as the moment passed. Elara, still fuming, turned away, and after a few more moments of silence they both returned to their tasks, the argument now simmering in the background. As expected, waves of guests flooded into the Sapphire River Hotel, with the afternoon seeing a rush of bookings. Lily felt the pressure mounting as the hotel staff scrambled to handle the influx of guests. Needing a break from the chaos, she decided to step outside for a little peace of mind. She had half an hour to herself, a small window of time to collect her thoughts. Lily made her way to the little food court on the side of the hotel, where she often ate alone to avoid the tension with her coworkers. She pulled out the lunch she had packed in a small container, quickly digging in, her thoughts still preoccupied with the drama from earlier. "Elara is so annoying," she muttered to herself between bites, her frustration evident. "She acts like she's all that, but she looks like a frog." As she vented quietly, an elderly man suddenly stopped in front of her, causing Lily to look up in surprise. He was an unkempt figure, walking slowly but with an air of quiet resilience. The food court was an open area, and Lily quickly worried that the security guard might notice the old man and ask him to leave. "Sir, would you like something to eat?" Lily asked, her voice soft but polite, unsure of how to handle the situation. The old man's face lit up with a wide, grateful smile as he looked down at her food. "Lucky me you haven't finished yet," he said with a sparkle in his eyes. "Here, sir, please take it." Lily hesitated for a moment. She didn't have much left, but she could see the hunger in his eyes. "Sorry, this is all I have right now," she apologized without hesitation. "It's not payday yet." But her conscience couldn't let her walk away. With a gentle sigh, she handed over her food to the elderly man, who sat down across from her, looking at her with heartfelt gratitude. "Thank you so much, miss," the old man said, his voice shaky with emotion. "I haven't eaten anything for quite a while." "You're heaven sent." Lily smiled modestly, brushing off the compliment. "It's nothing," she replied, feeling a warmth in her heart as she watched the man eat. Despite the challenges of her day, she felt a sense of fulfillment in this simple act of kindness. As the old man savored the meal, Lily couldn't help but reflect on the contrast between the tension she had just faced with Elara and the peacefulness of this small, meaningful interaction. Sometimes, kindness could cut through the chaos, offering a brief escape from the negativity that often surrounded her. "You're a kind person, miss. I think your parents must have raised you well," the old man said, his voice full of admiration. Lily smiled gently, but felt a pang of sorrow. "My grandparents actually raised me. I never met my parents because, according to them, they died in a massive fire in Brooklyn years ago while at work," she explained softly. The old man's expression immediately changed to one of regret. "Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned it." "No, it's okay," Lily reassured him. "What matters is I still have people I consider family." She looked down briefly, her gaze falling on the old man's clothes. He was messy but not in tatters, and to her he appeared to be a typical homeless wanderer. The disheveled look struck her heart, but she didn't want to make assumptions. "Miss," the old man said after a moment of silence, "do you think I can apply for a job at that hotel? I really need money to survive." Lily paused, considering his request. She looked at him, taking in his weathered face and humble demeanor. Given his age, there was only one position that she thought might be appropriate. "Sir, I hope you won't be offended, but the only opening I know of at the hotel is for a janitor." "That's fine by me," the old man replied, his voice steady despite his situation. "I only made it through elementary school, but I can read. How do I apply to that hotel, miss?" Lily nodded, feeling a mix of compassion and responsibility. "Just bring your resume and come back around the same time tomorrow. I'll take you to HR. Also, sorry to repeat myself, but you'll need to dress a bit nicer. That's something they look for when hiring," she explained, trying to give him a sense of what would be expected. "I see," he said thoughtfully. "I'll see if I have anything decent to wear. Thanks, miss." He returned her empty container with a grateful smile, then turned to leave. As he crossed the street, he waved at her, and Lily found herself smiling back. She felt a warmth inside her that she hadn't expected, considering how her day had started off badly with Elara. It was a small but meaningful interaction, one that made her feel better about the world. She sighed, a little more at peace than she had been that morning. "I forgot to ask him his name," Lily muttered to herself with a soft laugh. She didn't know why it bothered her, but she felt as if there was something important about that moment that she hadn't fully embraced. After her break, Lily returned to work, but the day felt long and exhausting. The constant tasks, the constant need to perform wore her down. By 9 p.m., she finally clocked out, eager to get home. As soon as she stepped outside the hotel, she saw a message from her grandfather, Mr. Casey. Mrs. Lucy was rushed to the hospital. Lily's heart sank, and without a second thought, she flagged down a cab. The ride to the hospital felt interminable, and when she arrived, she rushed inside, only to find her grandfather waiting outside her grandmother's room. He looked weary and anxious. "Grandpa, what happened to Grandma?" she asked, her voice trembling with concern. Casey looked at her, his face drawn with worry. "I brought her here because she was complaining of severe stomach pain earlier," he explained, his words laced with frustration and helplessness. "I don't know yet what's going on. We have to wait for the doctor." Lily nodded, her heart heavy with concern for her grandmother. She stood beside her grandfather, both of them caught in a quiet, shared worry as they waited for any news. They sat on the bench quietly, the sterile, quiet atmosphere of the hospital pressing down on them. Lily's thoughts were a tangled mess of worry, fear, and helplessness. This was the first time Mrs. Lucy had ever experienced something this serious. Lily couldn't suppress the anxiety swelling inside her. Her mind raced, and every passing second felt like an eternity. After a few moments, the doctor finally emerged from the hallway, his face serious. Lily felt her stomach drop at the sight of him. He took a deep breath before speaking, delivering the crushing news. "Mrs. Lucy has developed a tumor in her ovary," he said gravely. "It's a serious situation. If the tumor isn't removed as soon as possible, her life could be in danger." Lily's knees nearly buckled under the weight of the doctor's words. She felt dizzy, like the room was spinning around her. Her eyes went wide with shock, and the cold dread seeped into her bones. The news was like a heavy stone pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. Her mind immediately jumped to the practicalities. The surgery would cost a fortune, far more than Lily could afford. She could barely make ends meet with her current paycheck, and now this? Mr. Casey, standing beside her, murmured a quiet prayer, his voice full of anguish. "Oh dear, where are we going to get that much money? Lord, help us." Lily placed a hand on his arm, trying to steady both him and herself. "Don't worry, Grandpa," she said, her voice tight but determined. "I'll find a way." But inside, she was filled with doubt. How could she find that kind of money? Even if she worked non-stop, her next paycheck wouldn't even come close. She made around $30,000 per month, but the surgery would cost a staggering $100,000. It felt impossible. Her mind raced, but she couldn't see any way out. The next day, Lily arrived at work feeling as if the weight of the world was on her shoulders. Her usual calm demeanor was replaced by visible anxiety, and Julian, her manager, immediately noticed. He walked toward her with a stern expression, his eyes sharp. "Hey, Lily," he said, his tone firm. "I've been watching you. What's your problem? I don't want you zoning out on the job. That's how mistakes happen. If you can't focus, you might as well go home." Lily's heart sank. "No, sir," she replied quickly, her voice trembling. "I really need the money. I can't afford to be absent." Julian's eyes narrowed, a slight trace of annoyance in his voice. "Everyone here needs money, Lily. That's not an excuse to slack off. But can you really focus in the state you're in?" Lily's anxiety deepened, but she forced herself to respond with all the strength she could muster. "I can manage, sir. Please don't send me home. My grandma is in the hospital and I really need the money." Her voice cracked slightly, betraying her desperation. Her eyes met Julian's, and for a brief moment, she saw something in his expression, a flicker of understanding, or perhaps something else. "Come with me, then," Julian said suddenly, his voice softer. "I've got something to tell you." Lily followed him without question, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. What could he possibly want? Was he finally going to give her a break? Her heart pounded in her chest as she followed him to his office. When they arrived, she was caught off guard to see Elara sitting casually in the chair behind Julian's desk, her posture confident, as if she owned the place. Lily paused in the doorway, confused. "What's she doing here?" she asked, her voice laced with surprise and suspicion. Julian didn't seem fazed. He turned to Elara, his expression unreadable. "What's going on here?" he asked in a tone that implied he wasn't entirely happy to see her there. Lily's confusion only deepened. Why was Elara here? Why was she in Julian's office? But all of her questions were answered in an instant, when Julian stepped forward, moving in close to Elara. Before Lily could process what was happening, Julian kissed Elara on the lips, and the air seemed to freeze around Lily. The shock hit her like a physical blow. It was clear now. Julian and Elara were a couple. The realization took her breath away, and her mind scrambled to catch up with the sudden shift in her perception of both of them. All the times Elara had acted jealous, all the times she had spoken with disdain, none of it made sense now. Lily's stomach churned as she realized how little she truly understood the dynamics of the people around her. Her heart sank, but she quickly tried to push aside the shock, refocusing on the reason she was there. But the unease lingered. How had she misread everything so completely? "Hey, we need a model for our little business. This is Lily. She's pretty and she's got a nice figure. She might be useful," Julian said casually, as though the matter was already decided. Lily's heart skipped a beat. Model? For what? What business were they talking about? But before she could ask, Elara shot a glare at her, her voice dripping with disdain. "You want to bring her in with us? No way, I hate her face. Send her away," Elara spat, her words laced with venom. Julian, surprisingly, didn't back down. "Come on, Elara, we need the extra income. Lily can help, so just say yes." Lily stood there, frozen. She didn't even know what they were discussing. All she understood was that they wanted her to be part of something she didn't understand, and that Julian and Elara had some side hustle going that she wasn't involved in. And she also just realized they were a couple, which sent a wave of discomfort through her. "Whatever it is you're talking about, I'm not interested. I don't want to get involved in your sideline. Besides, I know Elara will only get more ticked off at me." "I'll be leaving now, sir," Lily said, cutting him off before he could say anything else. Without waiting for a response, she turned and quickly walked out of the office, her mind buzzing. A few hours later, break time arrived, and Lily couldn't shake the thought of the old man she had met at the food court. She decided to step outside, hoping she might run into him again. Sure enough, when she reached the same spot, she found him waiting, resume in hand. His clothes had changed, but they still weren't ideal for an interview. Ripped jeans and a stained polo shirt, but the hopeful smile on his face made her heart ache. "Miss Lily, good thing you came. I've got my resume right here. Do you think they'll hire me as a janitor looking like this?" the old man asked, his voice full of uncertainty. Lily glanced at him, noticing how eager he was, and her heart softened. She wanted to help him, but she also knew the reality of how judgmental people could be, especially in a place like the Sapphire River Hotel. "We'll see. Just make sure you answer their questions well. But don't be surprised if you encounter a certain crazy manager. Don't worry though, I'll take you to HR. You can do this, Mr. Elliot," Lily encouraged him, her voice warm with sincerity. Before her break ended, she guided Mr. Elliot through the hotel. Despite the fact that she hadn't grabbed anything to eat, she didn't mind. As they walked into the lobby, she could feel the eyes of the hotel staff on them. Most of them either moved away or shot them looks of disgust, clearly judging Mr. Elliot by his appearance. "By the way, I forgot to ask your name yesterday," Lily said, trying to break the awkward silence as they entered the elevator. "Just call me Elliot, or Mr. Elliot if you prefer," he replied, still smiling broadly as though thrilled just to be in the building. When the elevator doors opened, they ran into Elara. She had clearly just finished eating as there was sauce smeared on the side of her mouth. As soon as she saw Mr. Elliot, her expression twisted into a look of revulsion. "Gross. Lily, you brought a homeless guy here? Is that your father?" Elara sneered, her voice full of disdain. Lily's stomach churned at the cruelty in Elara's tone, but she refused to let Elara get to her. She looked back at Mr. Elliot, who seemed unfazed by Elara's rude comment, still smiling as if oblivious to the judgment surrounding him. "Elara, he's just here for a job interview. Can you be a little more respectful?" Lily said, trying to defend Mr. Elliot. She wasn't going to let Elara belittle him. He didn't deserve that. Lily's blood boiled as Elara's cruel words echoed in her mind. It was hard to ignore how low Elara was willing to go, especially after what she'd said about Lily's parents. "Oh, I forgot. You don't have parents? They're dead," Elara added with a smirk. Lily's fist clenched at her side, her anger rising, and for a moment she looked like she might lash out. The temptation was there, but then Elara taunted her again, pushing her even further. "Oh, you want to hit me? Do it and see if you can keep your job. Maybe you've forgotten your grandma's in the hospital and you need money." Elara sneered, her voice dripping with malice. Lily fought to stay calm. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the bigger picture. "Elara, not now. I've got things to do. If you have nothing better to do, just focus on your job so your day can actually mean something," she said, her voice steady but cutting. Elara's eyes flashed with fury. "What did you say?" she hissed, her face reddening with rage. Lily didn't even glance back. She was done with Elara's nonsense. Her priority now was Mr. Elliot, and she wasn't about to let Elara's childish behavior distract her. She guided Mr. Elliot toward the HR office, determined to get him the help he needed. When they reached the door, Mr. Elliot seemed a little nervous. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Don't worry. And don't be too nervous. Keep your mind clear. You can do it," Lily reassured him, giving him an encouraging smile. "Miss, can you stay with me during the interview?" Mr. Elliot asked, his voice tinged with anxiety. Lily hesitated for a moment, unsure whether that was allowed, but her heart went out to him. "I'm not sure if that's allowed, but let's try," she said with a smile, hoping to ease his nerves. "Thank you," he replied, his relief evident. They opened the door to HR and walked inside, where they found Julian sitting at his desk reading through some paperwork. He looked up when he sensed them standing there, his brow furrowing in irritation. "Lily, what is this? Why'd you bring that filthy old man in here?" Julian snapped, slamming his hand on the desk in frustration. Elliot, still smiling and calm, stepped forward, clearly unfazed by the hostility in the air. He admired the office, perhaps trying to mask his discomfort. "Sir, Mr. Elliot isn't homeless. He's here to apply as a janitor. I heard we have an opening," Lily said, standing firm. Julian's eyes narrowed, his anger boiling over. "Where'd you pick him up, Lily? I'm asking you, where?" he demanded, his voice low and threatening. "I'm the one who came to her and asked for help to apply," Mr. Elliot said politely, stepping forward with a respectful tone. Julian's patience snapped. "Shut it, old man. I wasn't talking to you," he snarled, his face twisting in disdain. "I'm sorry," Mr. Elliot mumbled, clearly taken aback but still trying to keep his composure. Lily felt her heart race. She hated how Julian treated Mr. Elliot, how he treated anyone, really, but she wasn't going to let this stop her. She had a job to do, and she wasn't backing down. Lily was still reeling from the exchange with Julian when she found herself back in the hotel's bustling hallway. She had done her best for Mr. Elliot, but Julian's cruel behavior was still fresh in her mind. She couldn't believe how heartless her manager was. The insults, the demeaning attitude, it all stung, especially after Mr. Elliot had been nothing but polite and grateful. "Lily, if you were going to bring someone in, at least get someone strong, maybe a young female janitor. But this is what you come up with? He looks weak, dirty, and smelly. It's disgusting," Julian raged, his face twisted in disgust. Lily could feel her blood boiling, but she held her ground. "Sir, please, don't be like that to him. All he wants is a job. Let's help him out. He may be old, but at least he's trying," she countered, trying her best to stay calm. "I don't care. I want someone younger, preferably female. I don't care what he wants. Get him out of here before I lose my temper. You know I hate bad smells," Julian snapped, his tone venomous. "Sir, maybe you could just give me a chance. If you think I'm not good at this job, then you can fire me," Mr. Elliot pleaded, his voice full of humility. Lily's heart sank at how Julian spoke to the old man. "Why do you think you know more than me, old man? Leave now before I say something I regret. And you, Lily, get him out of here if you don't want to get in trouble. You know I hate smelly people." Julian's final words were like a slap in the face. With a heavy heart, Lily had no choice but to usher Mr. Elliot out of the office. She could feel her anger simmering beneath the surface, but she knew pushing back wasn't the right choice at that moment. Once outside, she was surprised by Mr. Elliot's calm demeanor. He wasn't upset despite Julian's cruel insults. He was still smiling, unaffected. "I'm really sorry, sir. That's the crazy manager I was telling you about," Lily apologized, feeling terrible about the way Mr. Elliot was treated. "It's all right, miss. Maybe this place just isn't for me. I'm happy enough to have entered such a fine building. Don't worry, my destiny doesn't end here. I'll find another job," Mr. Elliot said cheerfully, as though the whole situation had no impact on him at all. "I truly am sorry," Lily repeated, feeling guilt weigh heavily on her heart. "You didn't do anything wrong. I saw how hard you tried to defend me. Some people just abuse the power they have." "Don't worry, that Julian guy's days are numbered," Mr. Elliot said cryptically, his smile never faltering. Lily raised an eyebrow in confusion. "Huh? What do you mean by that?" Mr. Elliot waved it off with a laugh. "Oh, nothing. I'm just saying. Anyway, would you mind walking me to the elevator? Elevators make me a bit nervous since I've never really used one before," he said, his tone lighthearted. Lily chuckled softly at the thought of the old man being nervous about an elevator. "Of course, let's go," she said, glad to have something else to focus on, even if it was something small. She walked him to the elevator, feeling a sense of protectiveness for him. As they walked out of the hotel together, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Mr. Elliot than met the eye. After seeing Mr. Elliot off, Lily returned to her duties. On her way back to the work area, she unexpectedly found herself sharing an elevator with Theodore. His warm smile greeted her as he noticed her, and for a brief moment, Lily felt a sense of relief. The tension from the morning's events seemed to melt away in his presence. "Good afternoon, Lily," Theodore greeted her with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, sir," Lily replied, then added, "By the way, that old man with me earlier was Mr. Elliot. I met him in the food court. He applied as a janitor for our team, but Julian rejected him right away. He even said some terrible things." Lily realized, almost too late, that she'd said too much. She quickly covered her mouth, regretting her words. "Julian's crazy. If I could fire him immediately, I would," Theodore muttered, his voice laced with frustration. Lily stayed silent, her worry growing. She was afraid she'd reveal even more about Julian's awful behavior. "All right, good luck with work. Bye," Theodore said, flashing her a wide, genuine smile. Several female employees nearby noticed the exchange and shot daggers at Lily. Their envious stares made her uncomfortable, but she focused on her tasks, reminding herself of the extra pay she could earn from the overtime. By 11 p.m., Lily was cleaning a room on the 7th floor. It had been used by some of their Chinese guests, and as soon as she walked in, she was hit by the nauseating stench of vomit and alcohol. She'd dealt with worse smells before in her year as a housekeeper, but it still made her stomach turn. Some guests really don't think the bathroom is right over there, but they still puked on the table. "Annoying," Lily muttered under her breath. Realizing she had forgotten to grab a mop, she decided to head back down to get one. As she exited the room, she saw Elara stepping out of the last room on the corridor, accompanied by another coworker, Rick. Both of them looked suspiciously hurried, and their attire stood out. Elara was wearing something very revealing, almost like a cosplay costume. Lily couldn't help but wonder what they had been doing in that room, but she quickly brushed the thought away. "They act like I'm the flirty one, but she's obviously the real flirt," Lily thought bitterly. "She's got Julian, and she's still hooking up with Rick. Disgusting." As she passed the room Elara and Rick had just exited, she noticed a small black piece of cloth hanging on the doorknob, almost like a signal. Lily frowned, not sure what to make of it, but shrugged and continued on her way. After her shift ended, Lily headed straight to the hospital to visit her grandmother. Her grandfather had texted saying that Mrs. Lucy wanted to see her at the entrance. As Lily approached the hospital, she unexpectedly ran into Theodore once more, and she was taken aback. "Sir Theodore?" she exclaimed, surprised to see him there. "Oh, Lily, what are you doing here?" Theodore greeted, a bit surprised. "My grandma is confined here. How about you, sir?" Lily replied. "A friend of mine works here as a doctor. I was just dropping by," Theodore explained. "I see. Well, I need to get going, sir. I have to work early tomorrow," Lily said, knowing she couldn't linger. "All right, take care," Theodore said, flashing her another warm smile. Lily smiled back, grateful for the brief encounter, before he left. Lily continued on her way to Mrs. Lucy's room, where she found her grandparents deep in conversation. She placed the fruits she had bought on the side table before turning to her grandmother. "How are you feeling, Grandma? Is your—" Lily hesitated before finishing her sentence. "Stomach still hurting?" "I'm fine, dear. The pain subsided a bit," Mrs. Lucy reassured her, though the concern was still evident in her eyes. The doctor had administered a pain reliever, but the surgery remained urgent, as Mr. Casey reminded Lily. Despite her worry, Lily forced a wide smile to keep up the appearance of everything being fine. "Don't worry, Grandma. I'll find a way to pay for your operation soon," she insisted, trying to hide the anxiety rising within her. "I'm sorry you have to bear this burden because of me," Mrs. Lucy said, her voice tinged with guilt. "No, Grandma. Don't apologize. All that matters is you get well," Lily replied softly, her voice full of love and reassurance. After spending some time with her grandparents, Lily went to the billing department to check on the cost of the surgery, hoping to at least get started on the payment. To her shock, the hospital staff informed her that they didn't owe anything. "Ma'am, are you sure? We haven't paid anything. How is it possible we're cleared?" Lily asked, confusion washing over her. "Someone paid your bill in advance," the staff member explained. "Who was it?" Lily asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'm sorry, ma'am. He told us not to reveal his identity," the staff member replied, offering a polite but firm smile. Lily stood there, momentarily speechless. She was overwhelmed with emotions, relief and gratitude mixed with an overwhelming sense of curiosity about who could have helped them. Still, she was grateful for the unexpected stroke of luck. With her mind at ease regarding the hospital bill, she entered work the next day in a much better mood. The weight of the financial burden had been lifted, but she still had to deal with the ongoing chaos of her coworkers. The next day, as Lily went about her work, she saw Elara and Rick emerging from that same 7th-floor room again. She wondered what was going on but decided it wasn't her business to pry. Instead, she focused on her tasks, determined to keep her attention on what truly mattered. But before she knew it, break time arrived. As Lily stepped onto the 3rd floor, she was pleasantly surprised to see Mr. Elliot mopping the floor. He was now dressed in the hotel's janitor uniform, appearing every bit the part. She beamed at the sight of him, happy to see that he had indeed found a way to get hired by the hotel after all. "Mr. Elliot, you're here! So you reapplied and Julian accepted you," Lily exclaimed, surprised and pleased to see him. "Nope, Julian wasn't the one who hired me. It was another manager, tall, good-looking, and he hired me on the spot," Mr. Elliot said with a grin. "Whoever that was, he's really nice. Congratulations, Mr. Elliot," Lily cheered. "Thank you, dear. You're the reason I'm here. If it weren't for you," Mr. Elliot began, but Lily quickly interrupted. "Oh no, sir, you deserve the credit. Thank yourself," she said, trying to deflect the praise. The air conversation was abruptly interrupted when Julian appeared, his face contorting into a scowl the moment he saw Mr. Elliot. "Hey, why is that old man here again and why is he holding a mop?" Julian demanded, his tone hostile. "Sir, I got hired. I applied with another manager," Mr. Elliot said, his voice full of pride. "And who's the idiot manager that hired you? I already rejected you, Lily. Who hired this old—" Julian continued, barely containing his anger. "I don't know, sir. I just found out now that Mr. Elliot is officially hired," Lily answered, trying to stay calm. "Damn it! Find me the idiot manager who hired this filthy man. I won't allow someone like him on our team. It irritates me," Julian raged, his face turning red. "I'm the one who hired him for your team," a voice suddenly interjected. It was Theodore, stepping into view, his hands casually tucked in his pockets. Julian froze, his expression faltering as he realized it was Theodore, the head manager, who had outranked him. He quickly backpedaled, his demeanor shifting to something more submissive. "Oh, Sir Theodore, you did? I didn't know. Is there a problem with me letting him in?" Julian stammered, trying to recover. "I saw that Mr. Elliot still has the capacity to work. Sure, he looks rough, but I sense he's a hard-working person. We do need a janitor, right? If you have a problem with my decision, we can always discuss it in my office," Theodore said smoothly, his tone calm and commanding. "No, Sir Theodore. If it's your decision, then of course it's right," Julian said with a forced laugh, trying to mask his anger. He was clearly seething inside. "All right, that settles it. I'll be on my way now. I've got things to handle," Theodore said, flashing a quick smile at Lily before turning to leave. Lily stood there, still in shock, as Theodore walked away. Once he was gone, Julian's fury turned fully on Mr. Elliot, his anger no longer held back. "Listen here, old man, you better do your job right. One screw-up and I'll fire you on the spot. Got it?" Julian glared at Mr. Elliot, his tone sharp and threatening. The old man nodded obediently, still smiling as if unfazed by Julian's outburst. Julian stormed off, his mood sour like a child who'd just lost an argument. Mr. Elliot, now that you're here at Sapphire River Hotel, just do your best at all times, okay? Lily said, her voice warm and encouraging. Our team is strict. You've seen how our manager can be. We can't afford mistakes, but I believe in you. She gently took his wrinkled hand in hers. Thank you, dear. You're the reason I'm here. If I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have this job. When I get my first paycheck, I'm taking you out to eat. My treat. Mr. Elliot insisted with a sincere smile. Oh, that's really not necessary, sir. Just save your money, Lily replied, feeling a little awkward but touched by his generosity. No, let me do this as my way of thanking you. So, don't say no, he said firmly. All right. I won't argue then, Lily agreed with a smile, appreciating his kindness. After their conversation, Lily made her way back to the locker room. She found Elise there, applying heavy makeup, which seemed unusual for their line of work. It wasn't the subtle, natural look most housekeepers wore. Intrigued, Lily decided to ask, Elise, why are you wearing that kind of makeup? Are you going to a party? You know we can't wear that sort of thing if we're still clocked in. Are you going home? Lily asked, genuinely curious. Do I look like I'm clocking out? Elise snapped sarcastically, rolling her eyes. Then why? Lily asked again. Don't pry, Lily. I need to do this because I need extra money, Elise said, her tone clipped but evasive. Lily's curiosity only deepened. What do you mean, extra income? What are you— I'm not telling you unless you're interested in coming with me, Elise said with a mischievous grin, clearly not going to give anything away unless Lily agreed. Before Lily could respond, the elevator doors opened, and they were greeted by a tense scene. Mr. Elliot was on the floor, struggling to clean up spilled rice and a milkshake. Standing in front of him, her face flushed with anger, was Elara, shouting at the top of her lungs. Whose idea was it to let this old fool in? He doesn't watch where he's going. I just bought my meal and he bumped into me. Now my food's wasted. Gosh, so stupid, Elara ranted, her voice full of venom. I'm sorry, ma'am, my eyesight's bad. I honestly didn't see you, but I can pay you back, Mr. Elliot offered softly, his voice full of regret. Oh, pay me back from your broke-looking pockets? Please. Disgusting, Elara sneered, her disgust evident in every word. Lily stepped forward, her heart sinking at the scene. The tension was thick and she couldn't help but feel for Mr. Elliot, who was just trying his best to fit in. Hold on, there's no need to scream at Mr. Elliot like that, Lily couldn't help stepping in, her voice firm. He didn't do it on purpose. Anyone can make a mistake, so why treat him this way? Don't you have a father or parents who taught you any manners? Lily's words only seemed to fuel Elara's fury. Without warning, Elara stormed toward her and tried to slap her, but Lily quickly blocked the strike, her stance unwavering. You're going to assault me just because you're embarrassed by your own behavior? Lily asked, her voice steady despite the tension. You're too meddlesome, Lily. Let's see how tough you are, Elara threatened, her eyes blazing with anger. Just then, Theodore arrived with 2 security personnel, the sudden presence of authority diffusing the escalating conflict. What's going on here? Theodore demanded, his voice sharp and commanding. Mentally scrambled to his feet, looking flustered and apologetic. Sir, I'm sorry. This is all my fault, Mr. Elliot said, his voice shaky. My eyesight is bad and I accidentally bumped into Elara. She spilled her food, but it really wasn't intentional. And sir, she's been completely disrespectful to an elderly person, Lily added, standing her ground. Stop complaining, Lily, Elara snapped, her frustration evident. The Theodore's gaze hardened. Elara, that's enough. Come with me to my office, he ordered sternly. But sir, Elara protested, her voice rising. You know food isn't allowed here, so why were you eating in the hallway? Follow me and we'll discuss your attitude, Theodore said, turning on his heel and heading toward his office. Elara had no choice but to follow him, muttering under her breath as she went. Lily and Mr. Elliot were left standing in the hallway, the tension slowly dissipating. Elise, who had been lurking in the corner, quietly slipped away, not wanting to be involved further. The bystanders who had gathered earlier also dispersed, leaving the scene behind. Mr. Elliot, are you all right? Lily asked, her concern evident in her voice. I'm fine. Things like this happen, Mr. Elliot said quietly, brushing it off. It was partly my fault. It's not normal for someone to be yelled at that way over an accident, Lily said, shaking her head in disbelief. Everyone makes mistakes. But that doesn't give anyone the right to stomp on others. Besides, she probably wasn't watching where she was going either. I know Elara, she walks around like she owns the place, Lily added, making Mr. Elliot chuckle softly in amusement. It's okay, Lily, go back to your work. I'll clean up here before Mr. Julian sees me, Mr. Elliot said, his smile reassuring despite the earlier confrontation. Lily nodded, feeling a sense of relief that things had settled down, at least for the moment. She headed back to her duties, determined to leave the chaos behind her. I'll help you, Lily offered, but Mr. Elliot quickly shook his head. No need, he replied with a gentle smile. This is my job, let me handle it. That way I'll learn more. His determination was clear, and Lily couldn't help but admire his persistence. All right, if you insist, I'll get going now, she said, her voice filled with understanding. She turned to leave, but before she did, she gave him a reassuring smile, hoping everything would go smoothly for him. By the time Lily's shift ended, word had spread quickly among the team. Whispers about Elara's sudden disappearance from the staff room buzzed through the air. By the time the evening came to a close, it was confirmed. Elara had been suspended. The gossip was rife, with some of the staff even speculating about the exact reason for her absence, while others expressed their relief at her sudden absence. No one had expected such a drastic measure to be taken. As Lily gathered her things, preparing to head home for the night, a familiar voice called out to her. It was Rick, his smile more leering than usual, making Lily's stomach twist with discomfort. Lily, he said, his voice dripping with a kind of mock sweetness. Julian says to go to his office. Her heart sank. She had a sinking feeling this was connected to the earlier incident with Elara. Though she felt the familiar knot of anxiety rising in her chest, she steeled herself. She had done nothing wrong. She had only stood up for what was right. With a deep breath, she nodded and made her way toward Julian's office. The moment she stepped inside, the atmosphere felt thick with tension. Julian was standing behind his desk, his face red with anger, shouting at Mr. Elliot. The second he noticed Lily, his eyes locked onto her, and his fury seemed to double. You too, Lily, Julian spat, his voice dripping with venom. Come here. You two are driving me nuts. Lily hesitated, but with no other choice, she stepped forward and took a seat next to Mr. Elliot, who still seemed calm despite the harsh words being thrown at him. Julian's gaze burned into her, his nostrils flaring. What was that you pulled? He demanded, his voice seething. Which incident do you mean, sir? Lily asked, trying to keep her composure. Are you stupid, or are you just trying to piss me off? Julian shot back, glaring at her as if she had personally offended him. You telling me you did nothing wrong? Lily met his gaze, unwavering. I don't think I did anything wrong, sir, she replied, her voice steady despite the growing tension. Nothing wrong? Are you that dumb? Because of your meddling, Elara got suspended. Julian's voice cracked with rage. Elara, our star employee, the one who gets all the foreign guests to tip us like crazy, and now because of you, she's gone. How are we supposed to get tips now? You think you attract guests like she does? His words were sharp and cruel, and his spittle flew in all directions, landing on both Lily and Mr. Elliot. The rancid stench of onions from his breath made Lily cringe, but she stayed quiet, trying to keep her dignity. You could have just cleaned up the mess quietly, Julian continued, his face contorting with anger. But no, you had to make a scene. If you hadn't stuck your nose in, none of this would have happened. Lily could feel Mr. Elliot tense beside her, but neither of them said anything. Julian's fury seemed to build as the silence stretched on, and his eyes narrowed further. You both really want to push me, huh? He sneered. You've been here barely a week and you're already causing trouble. Fine, you want to play like that? He slammed his hand onto the desk, making Lily jump slightly. I'm suspending both of you for a whole month. The words hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. Lily glanced at Mr. Elliot, who gave her a slight nod, still smiling that quiet, calm smile of his. They both stayed silent, not giving Julian the satisfaction of seeing them cower under his threats. This only seemed to enrage him further. Are you deaf? He bellowed, his voice rising again. I said you're both suspended. Lily didn't flinch. Mr. Elliot remained as serene as ever. The silence in the room became suffocating, as if Julian's words had lost all meaning and his fury had nowhere else to go. Lily looked Julian in the eye, her heart pounding, but she stood her ground. She hadn't done anything wrong. Suspended for a month, Julian repeated, his voice escalating as he slammed his fist onto the desk. His anger was palpable, his face flushed with fury. Elliot, however, remained unfazed, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Well, sir," he said softly, his voice steady. "Mr. Theodore told me you can't suspend me because I haven't done anything wrong." Lily, feeling the heat of the moment, added, "That's what he told me too, sir, so whose orders do we follow, yours or someone higher?" Her voice was measured, but she couldn't help the hint of defiance creeping in. Julian's fury surged, his hands clenched into fists, his body vibrating with rage, but he knew better than to challenge the head manager. "Damn that, Theodore," he muttered under his breath, his words laced with venom. Elliot and Lily, on the other hand, remained as calm as ever, their composure contrasting sharply with Julian's outburst. "Get out of here before I do something I regret," Julian bellowed, his voice dangerously close to cracking. Without a word, Lily and Mr. Elliot hurried out of the office. The tension in the air slowly lifted as they made their way down the hallway. Lily let out a long, relieved sigh. Despite the chaos that had just unfolded, Mr. Elliot was as serene as ever, his smile never wavering. "Good thing Mr. Theodore's on our side, right?" Lily said with a chuckle, exhaling in relief. "Exactly," Mr. Elliot agreed, nodding slightly. "He knows what's right and wrong, and he won't let the bad guys run the show. I knew I was right about him." His tone held an undeniable note of admiration, making Lily more curious. "Mr. Elliot, do you actually know Mr. Theodore?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. The old man suddenly chuckled, shaking his head. "No, I don't know him personally. What I mean is, I wasn't mistaken about him. He really is different from the others here." He paused, a knowing gleam in his eyes. "You can just tell when someone has integrity." Lily nodded, her thoughts swirling. "Oh, you're right," she agreed, her voice soft with thought. As their conversation ended, the two of them exited Sapphire River Hotel. They walked to the bus stop and Lily quickly hopped onto the first bus that came along. She glanced back to see Mr. Elliot still smiling, his calm nature a stark contrast to the storm they had just weathered. He waved as she pulled away, and Lily waved back, though a lingering sense of mystery about the old man gnawed at her. Throughout the bus ride home, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was something odd about Mr. Elliot, something she couldn't quite place. But it was more than just the calmness he displayed in the face of Julian's fury. There was something deeper there, something that made her wonder if there was more to him than met the eye. Just when Lily thought the worst was behind her, little did she know the real game was only beginning. Julian's rage was far from over, and Elara's grudge was only growing deeper. But beyond their petty schemes, an even bigger secret lay hidden within the walls of Sapphire River Hotel, one that could change everything. And Mr. Elliot? Who exactly was he? Why did he remain unfazed in the face of cruelty? And most importantly, why was Theodore, the head manager, paying such close attention to him? Lily was about to find herself entangled in a web of deception, power, and hidden identities. And when the truth finally comes to light, it might just be more than she ever bargained for. Stay tuned for episode 2, because at Sapphire River Hotel, not everything is as it seems.